The music had just swelled to its crescendo, the moment I was supposed to take Sarah's hands in mine, when the grand projection screen behind us flickered to life. Instead of the romantic slideshow of our journey together, the screen was filled with intimate photographs of my fiancée and her ex-boyfriend, Mark. A collective gasp rippled through the wedding guests. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage of disbelief and fury. The officiant stood frozen, his mouth agape. I turned, my eyes locking onto the source of this public humiliation. There, at a table near the front, sat Mark. He was dressed in a pristine white suit, a deliberate and cruel mockery, making him look like a second groom. The smug look on his face was the final spark. A hot wave of rage washed over me, and before I could think, I was storming off the stage and across the polished floor. The sound of my hand connecting with his cheek echoed in the suddenly silent hall. Before he could even react, Sarah was there, pushing me away with a strength that surprised me. "Leo, what are you doing?" she hissed, her voice a sharp reprimand. "Mark is just being immature. Do you really need to lose your cool like this?" I stumbled back, catching myself on a chair. The physical shock, nothing compared to the emotional blow of her words. She was defending him. Her ex-boyfriend had just deliberately ruined the most important day of our lives, and I was the one being told to calm down. Mark, meanwhile, cradled his now swelling cheek, tears welling up in his eyes in a theatrical display of pain. "Sarah," he whimpered, "I just wish you happiness. I guess I'll have to learn to live on without you." With that, he turned and ran from the hall, a picture of heartbroken nobility. Instinctively, Sarah started to move after him. "Sarah!" I called out, my voice barely a whisper, cracking with the weight of the moment. The wedding had just begun, and she was about to abandon me at the altar in front of everyone we knew. She hesitated, her footsteps faltering as the reality of the situation seemed to dawn on her. But it was only for a moment. She turned back, her expression a mixture of impatience and apology. "Let's just postpone the ceremony for half an hour," she said, as if it were a minor inconvenience. "I'll be right back." I watched, speechless, as she hurried out of the hall after him. My parents rushed to my side, their faces etched with concern and anger. They tried to soothe me, telling me to be patient, that she would surely come back. But I knew, with a sinking certainty in the pit of my stomach, that there was no way Sarah would be back in 30 minutes. An hour crawled by, and the empty space on the stage next to me became a gaping hole of humiliation. I had become the centerpiece of whispers and pitiful glances. I had to do something, to salvage some shred of dignity for both our families. I walked back to the microphone, my legs feeling like lead. "Sorry, everyone," I announced, my voice steadier than I felt. "There's been a change of plans. Today's wedding is now a birthday party. It's my 25th birthday, so please enjoy the cake. I'll make sure all the gifts are refunded. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening." It was a desperate attempt to save face, and the guests, to their credit, played along as best they could. After I had seen the last of them off, I noticed Sarah's mother had already left without a single word to me or my family. My own parents were seething, and I spent the next hour trying to calm them down, assuring them I would handle it. After dropping them at their hotel, a wave of exhaustion hit me. Still, I couldn't resist the morbid urge to know. I pulled out my phone and video called Sarah. It rang and rang, going to voicemail 5 times. On the 6th try, she finally answered. But the face that appeared on my screen wasn't hers. It was Mark's. He was shirtless, and in the background I could hear Sarah's voice. "Mark, give me the phone," she said. "Leo will be angry. The wedding must be a mess." He just laughed, a sound that grated on my nerves. "He won't be," Mark said. his voice dripping with condescension. "He'll wait patiently for you. He's really wrapped around your little finger, isn't he?" The ache in my chest was so sharp it felt physical. I couldn't listen to another second of it. I ended the call. About half an hour later, my phone rang again. It was Sarah, but this time it was only a voice call. I let it ring until it stopped. That night, I stayed with my parents at their hotel. My phone buzzed incessantly after midnight with calls from Sarah, but I put it on silent and tried to sleep. The next morning, my parents looked at me with worried eyes over breakfast. I forced a smile. "Mom, Dad, you should go back. I'll be fine. I can take care of myself." My father's heart was clearly broken for me. "You've been with her for 3 years," he said, his tone heavy with resentment for Sarah. "You even have the marriage certificate already." I looked down at my hands. "Dad, I'm sorry about the wedding," I said quietly. "I'm going to get a divorce from Sarah." They had flown in from Canada, where they live and work, just for my wedding, only to see their son become a public spectacle. They were open-minded people, and seeing how deeply Sarah had hurt me, they supported my decision without question. They wanted to stay, worried I'd be too devastated to be alone, and it took a lot of convincing to get them to board their flight home. A parent's love is a powerful thing, and I had no reason to parade my wounds in front of them and make them hurt along with me. After I returned from the airport, I found Sarah waiting for me outside my apartment. Her hair was damp, and she wore a fresh dress, looking as if she had just showered and changed. "Leo, this is for you," she said, holding out a box containing a new, expensive-looking watch. I stared at her, then at the box, and felt nothing. This was her pattern. She would do something to upset me, and then try to smooth it over with a gift, like slapping someone and then offering them a piece of candy. When I was still deeply in love with her, I used to let her charm her way back into my good graces. But after what happened at the wedding, everything had changed. "It's too expensive," I said flatly. "I can't accept it." Sarah just shrugged, a small, confident smile playing on her lips. "We're married now, silly. What's mine is yours. Of course you can take it." I just stared at her, letting the silence hang between us. Finally, her smile faltered. "Okay, I'm sorry, hubby," she said, her voice softening into a practiced pout. "I was wrong yesterday. You know how Mark is. We were together for 6 years. He just can't accept that I'm married now. I was afraid he'd do something foolish." "So you left me at the altar to go comfort him?" I demanded, my voice rising despite my efforts to keep it level. A flash of annoyance crossed her face. "I already explained it. What more do you want from me?" My heart, which I thought couldn't sink any lower, found a new depth of disappointment. "I want an apology," I said, "for what he did. That stunt with the pictures on the big screen, that was his doing, wasn't it? He did it to embarrass me, to humiliate me on my wedding day. He provided those photos. He hurt me. Doesn't he owe me an apology?" Sarah looked thoroughly irritated now. "Leo, can't you just let it go? I already told you Mark was just being immature." My heart felt like it shattered into a million tiny pieces. "There's some stuff at work," she said abruptly, adjusting her hair and turning toward the door. "I can't go on our honeymoon today. We'll talk about it later." She walked out, leaving me standing alone in the apartment, the word divorce still unspoken on my tongue. Sarah had been my senior in college. We met 3 years ago at an alumni event, introduced by one of the school's deans. She was the one who pursued me, and at the time, I thought she was the most caring and wonderful person I had ever met. We fell into a relationship naturally. It was only later, browsing through old school forums, that I learned about her history with Mark. They had been the campus power couple, together from their first year all the way through graduation, and for 2 years after. The official story was that they broke up due to personality differences. 6 years is a long time, I understood that, but it couldn't be an excuse for abandoning your own wedding. Pulled back to the present, I acted on impulse and called Sarah's assistant, Daniel. "Hi, Daniel. Is there something urgent going on at the company?" I asked. He sounded confused. "No, Leo. Sarah planned everything in advance so she could go on her honeymoon with you. Her schedule is clear for the next 2 weeks." "Okay, got it. Thanks," I said, and hung up. I didn't waste any more time. I packed a bag with my things, moved back to my own small apartment across town, and after giving myself a day to pull myself together, I went back to the university to focus on my work. I turned my phone off, needing a break from the world. That evening, as I was leaving my office, I found Sarah waiting for me, her arms crossed and a look of deep annoyance on her face. "Leo, can you stop being so dramatic?" she snapped. I just looked at her calmly. "I'll need you to find some time so we can go get the divorce papers signed." She reacted as if I'd told the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "A divorce? Leo, you're an out-of-towner with a disability. Do you really think you'll find someone better than me?" Her eyes flickered to the cochlear implant tucked behind my ear. A fever when I was 6 had led to a middle ear infection that took my hearing, and I've relied on the implant ever since. Sarah had known about my situation from the day we met. She used to praise my resilience and my positive outlook. Now she was using it as a weapon against me. The disappointment was absolute. "Come on, let's go back home," she said confidently. "We'll just tell everyone you threw a little tantrum. As for the wedding, I promise I'll make it up to you." Her voice dripped with a patronizing charity, as if I should consider myself lucky she was even willing to take me back. "I mean it, Sarah. This isn't a tantrum," I said, my voice sincere. But she wasn't listening. She looked me up and down, a dismissive sneer on her face. "Are those clothes from a supermarket? In the 3 years we've been together, I've never seen you wear a single designer brand or carry anything other than that canvas bag. Even your parents were dressed so plainly at the wedding. With your background and your personal challenges, do you really think breaking up with me is a good idea?" As she spoke, I couldn't help but laugh. A genuine, humorless laugh. My parents and I moved to Canada when I was young. There, people generally care more about comfort and practicality than brand names, and that mindset stuck with me. Supermarket clothes are comfortable, and canvas bags are simple, eco-friendly, and get the job done. I never imagined that Sarah saw my simple lifestyle as a sign of a poor family background. It was honestly amusing. Since when did wealth have to be so gaudy? "Tomorrow, 9 o'clock, I said, deciding not to explain myself. "Meet me at your company, and we can go to the civil office from there." Our world views were clearly incompatible. I opened my apartment door and stepped inside. As she tried to follow, I quickly shut it, and the edge of the door hit her squarely on the nose. "Leo, you're being unreasonable!" she shouted from the hallway. "I gave you a way to save face, and you're still acting like this!" I leaned against the door, listening to her outburst with a strange sense of calm. Just a month ago, we were excitedly planning our honeymoon. Now, we were falling apart. My phone pinged. It was an Instagram friend request from Mark. Against my better judgment, I accepted. A message came through immediately. "Hey, I'm Mark. You know who I am." Before I could type a reply, he sent 6 photos. The first 3 were from today, showing Sarah in a kitchen, cooking noodles for him. The last 3 were from our wedding day, after she had left me, showing her sitting by his bed, bringing him a glass of water. A feeling of revulsion, like watching maggots crawl over something once beautiful, churned in my stomach. "I've never seen someone so shameless about wrecking a marriage," I typed back. Mark replied with a smiling emoji. "Sarah didn't blame me. She says you love her a lot. Are you really that lost without her?" I answered, "This is between Sarah and me." He smugly replied, "Want me to prove I can call her over with just one phone call?" Just then, I heard Sarah's phone ring from outside my door. She whispered something. Then her knocking stopped. A few moments later, I heard the sound of her car driving away. 15 minutes later, Mark sent another photo. It was Sarah, getting out of her car and walking towards him. "We dated for 6 years. We have a lot of good memories. You really think you can hold on to her heart?" Another message followed. "Even after all this time, the feeling is still there." Attached was a picture of the watch she had tried to give me earlier, which I had left on her coffee table, unwanted. The wave of disgust was overwhelming. I blocked both Mark and Sarah on Instagram without another thought. The next day, I went to Sarah's office as planned. The receptionist gave me a look filled with pity. The story of our disastrous wedding had clearly made the rounds. I was unfazed. I tried calling Sarah, but she didn't answer. I asked her assistant to pass on a message that I was waiting in the lobby. 2 hours passed before Sarah finally came down, her expression still radiating annoyance. "Leo, you're making a scene. This is getting embarrassing." I didn't want to argue. "I don't want to talk. Let's just go get the divorce." My words were firm, and a few people in the lobby overheard. Feeling the pressure of the public audience, Sarah's face fell. "Fine," she snapped. "Divorce it is." She drove us to the civil office. I didn't look at her once. The silence in the car was heavy and tense. I think she finally understood that I was serious. Her tone softened. "Babe, I know I made a mistake. Can't you give me another chance?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. She had these captivating eyes that I had once loved, and now they looked at me with a hint of genuine hurt. For 3 years, I hadn't just admired her gaze. I had planned our entire future around it. Now all I felt was a dull ache of heartbreak. I kept my eyes fixed on the road. At a red light, her phone rang. It was Mark. Whatever he said made her go tense, and she glanced at me instinctively. In that same moment, a car slammed into us from behind. Thankfully, it was just a jolt. The other driver and I got out of our cars at the same time. We were met by 2 large, burly men who glared at us menacingly. Sarah opened her door and got out. I thought she was going to talk to them, to help sort things out. Instead, she turned to me. "Mark slipped at home," she said. Her voice rushed. "I need to go check on him. You handle these guys, then drive home." She looked at me, a flicker of worry in her eyes. "Sweetie," she added, her brows furrowed slightly. "Don't be mad. You know I truly love you." She leaned in to give me a placating kiss, but I turned my head away coldly. She looked stunned for a second, then her expression hardened into annoyance. Without another word, she hurried off, flagging down a bus that was about to leave the stop. It was a blazing summer day, but watching her leave me to deal with this alone, my heart felt like it was encased in ice. The men from the other car immediately started trying to blackmail me, demanding 50,000 yuan, even though they were the ones who had hit us. My car was perfectly fine, while their front headlight was shattered and their bumper was hanging off. Furious at their audacity, I told them I was calling the police. Unexpectedly, one of them, a bald man, pulled a large wrench from under his car seat and swung it at me. I dodged, but the second guy got out and shoved me to the ground. The next thing I knew, the wrench came down hard on my back. A blinding, intense pain consumed me, and the world started to go blurry. The attackers, who had only wanted to extort money, panicked when they saw me collapse. They scrambled back into their car and sped away. A kind bystander called an ambulance and reported the assault. At the hospital, the doctor told me my condition was critical. I needed immediate surgery. He explained the situation in detail, the risks involved if I delayed. "Please arrange the surgery, doctor," I said, my mind made up. On my 4th day in the hospital, I ran into Sarah's assistant, Daniel. His mother was in for surgery as well. That evening, Sarah rushed into my room, and she had brought Mark with her. "Leo," she said, standing by my bed with a guilty expression. "I'm so sorry. If only I hadn't left. I cut her off coldly. Don't worry about it. Even without this incident, I would have eventually needed this surgery. Sarah's face fell. Mark couldn't stand it. Without a hearing aid, you're practically a mute, he chimed in. You should be grateful to have someone as wonderful as Sarah. I sneered, raising an eyebrow at him. Divorcing Sarah means you get to move up from the shadows, right? Right now, you're just playing the pitiful ex. Mark's face went pale, and he fell silent. Sarah composed herself. Leo, I brought Mark here to apologize to you. With visible reluctance, Mark mumbled, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have ruined your wedding. It was my fault. I watched their little performance with a detached interest. Earlier that day, I'd had a chat with Daniel and found out that Sarah had been traveling with Mark for work recently. The rumor was that she had made him her chief secretary. Sarah, I said, my voice level. I just want a clean, quiet divorce. You're the CEO of a company. If I were to start talking to journalists about certain things, it might not be good for your public image as a successful businesswoman. She hadn't expected me to say that. A look of disdain crossed her face. Fine. We'll get a divorce. Just don't you regret it later. I smiled faintly. I won't. The next morning, I couldn't wait to meet her at the Civil Affairs office. After the paperwork was finalized, I felt as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. As I left, I saw Mark get out of a car to greet the newly divorced Sarah. She actually seemed to be in a good mood as we parted ways. Let's see how you get by without me, she remarked as a final parting shot. Once my health recovered, I threw myself back into my work. The mathematical modeling project I was leading for a new reservoir was wrapping up, and the government was beginning the bidding process for the construction phase. Several companies requested meetings, hoping to get an inside track on the data. Leo, there's a company that wants to meet. When are you free? My assistant Mike asked. As it turned out, the company was the one founded and run by Sarah. I never thought our paths would cross in a professional capacity. To save everyone's time, I instructed Mike to arrange a single, joint meeting for all the companies involved in the bid and to decline any requests for private appointments. The meeting was held in one of the university's conference halls. By the time I arrived, all the company representatives were already there. The reservoir was a massive project, with an estimated government budget of around 4.5 billion yuan. A project of that scale not only brought significant profits, but also a huge boost to a company's reputation. It was no surprise that all the top executives had shown up personally. Leo? Mark and Sarah were sitting together in the front row. Seeing me, they both sneered. This isn't your place, Sarah said, assuming I was there to cause some kind of trouble. She stood up, her voice a low warning. Leo, we're divorced. Don't mess this up for me. I chuckled. Sarah, it's been 2 months. Are you still so full of yourself? She eyed me warily. Mike stepped forward. Miss Vance, please take your seat. Dr. Sterling will be briefing everyone together. There will be no private meetings. Sarah stepped back, confused. Mike turned to the room. Hello, everyone. This is my PhD advisor, Dr. Leo Sterling. He is the lead engineer for the Reservoir Project's mathematical modeling team, and he will now share the relevant data with you. The color drained from Sarah's and Mark's faces. Their shocked gazes were fixed on me as I walked to the podium and began my presentation. After the meeting, Sarah hurried over to me. You're the lead engineer for the modeling? At your age? I responded calmly. Haven't you heard of prodigies, Sarah? My father is a legendary figure in the world of mathematics, and my mother is a famed architect. I grew up surrounded by their work and fell in love with math as a child. I skipped several grades, earned my PhD in Canada, and, on my parents' advice, returned home to take a position teaching at a university as a doctoral advisor and leading complex mathematical modeling projects. Perhaps my deep immersion in academia had blinded me to the realities of my relationship. Sarah was my first love, and I had zero experience in dating. I never noticed how emotionally distant she was, how she never asked about my family or my work, or ever introduced me to her circle of friends. Looking back, all the sweetness I thought we shared now seems tainted with a cold indifference. It was a good thing we were done. I turned and walked away, hearing Mark's incredulous voice behind me. He's definitely faking it. He's only 25, right? Younger than us. Who's he trying to fool? A few days later, the school's leadership invited me to dinner to celebrate the successful completion of the modeling phase. Coincidentally, I ran into Sarah there. She was seeing off a group of business elites and walked over to say hello when she saw the school deans. She looked surprised to see me with them. Professor Albright, the man who had first introduced us, was there. As soon as Sarah sat down at our table, he began to speak. "Sarah, I always knew Leo was an excellent young man. That's why I introduced him to you. You two dated for 3 years and finally got married. I was so happy for you both. I never expected you'd get confused at your own wedding. Did you know he was hired as a high-salaried doctoral lecturer by our school?" Sarah looked stunned. I thought he was just an exchange student. He's so young." Professor Albright frowned. "Who told you he was an exchange student? He's a leading expert in the math department and has led the development of several major projects. The man could live comfortably off his patents for several lifetimes. Both of his parents are renowned professors." Sarah looked utterly bewildered. I dropped my head with a self-deprecating smile. She must have thought I was at a disadvantage, academically and financially, mistaking my plain style of dress for proof that I was a poor student. "Professor Albright," I interjected, "Sarah and I are finished. Let's not bring up the past." When the dinner ended, Sarah insisted on driving me home. I politely declined and flagged down a cab. But when I got to my apartment, she was already there, waiting by my door. "Hey, honey," she greeted me, as if she had completely forgotten we were divorced. I looked at her, a calm, mocking smile on my face. "Sarah, we're divorced." She reached out to take my hand, but I moved it away. Her hand froze in midair. "Leo, I regret it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't stop thinking about you these past 2 months. Can't we get back together?" I found the whole situation darkly amusing. When we divorced, she was the one who said I would be the one with regrets. Now, it was clear she was the one regretting her choices. Whether her feelings were genuine or motivated by my newfound status, I couldn't tell, nor did I care to. "Sorry," I said flatly. "I'm not interested in getting back together." Over the next few days, Sarah became a constant presence in my life. When I was in the lab, she'd wait outside with a bouquet of flowers. During my lectures, she'd sit in the back like a student. She even started showing up at my door in the mornings with breakfast. Her persistence was becoming incredibly annoying. The next time she appeared, I laid it out for her. "I am not interfering with the bidding process. It's all up to your company's capabilities." She froze. "Leo, I'm truly regretting what I did. This has nothing to do with the bidding." I was silent for a moment, then looked her straight in the eye. "But I no longer love you," I said, my voice calm but firm. Her face fell, and for the rest of that day, she didn't come back. That night, however, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Mark, sobbing dramatically, asking me to go pick Sarah up from a bar where she was supposedly drinking herself into a stupor. I found the request absurd and hung up. The next day, he came to the university to find me. "Leo, do you know how much effort Sarah put into this project? How many sleepless nights she's had? Are you really okay with seeing all her work go to waste?" You've got the wrong guy, I told him. I'm in charge of the modeling. The bidding process is not my department. He pressed on. We know who you really are now. With your family's influence, you could make Sarah's company win this bid with just one word. You love her so much, and now you won't even help with this one little thing? I chuckled. Things change, Mark. After the way she treated me, do you really think I still love her? His breath caught. But Sarah liked you, after all. Can't you help her for the sake of what you once had? I really can't, I said. It was time for my class. I turned and walked away. At his wit's end, Mark yelled after me, Leo, if you don't help, I'll make you regret it. I paused and looked back at him. His face was twisted with anger. I smiled slightly. If they wanted to play dirty, I could preempt them. Before I walked into the classroom, I took a screenshot of Mark's threatening messages and posted them online, along with a photo of him and Sarah together from the day of my wedding. I acted quickly, neutralizing any rumors he might try to spread, and publicly shaming them both in the process. With this kind of public scandal attached to her company, her chances of winning the bid were likely shot. Time passed, and the university's anniversary celebration was approaching. My assistant, Mike, had invited me, so I went to the mall and bought a proper suit. On the day of the event, I wore a tailored white suit and mingled with alumni, a glass of champagne in hand. A familiar figure approached me. Leo, Sarah said, her gaze deep and searching. You look handsome. I raised an eyebrow. Thanks for the compliment. I know I'm not bad looking, I've just never focused much on my appearance. Her face fell slightly. About those rumors online. That was all, Mark. I didn't know anything about it beforehand. I shrugged. No worries, I made sure to hit back. Mark had posted on the school forum, claiming I had left my fiancée of 3 years for fame and fortune, using her for her money. I had countered by revealing the wedding sabotage and Sarah's subsequent infidelity. Mike had followed up with a post of his own, showcasing my academic and professional achievements, proving I was already successful long before I met Sarah and had millions in my own bank account, never needing a cent of her money. I had evidence for everything, including photos of them at a hotel together while I was hospitalized. The public shaming had effectively silenced them. Sarah was full of remorse. Leo, is there really no chance for us? I feigned surprise. Weren't you and Mark in a deep, meaningful relationship for 6 years? Her face twisted in pain. I'm sorry, Leo. Please, just give me one more chance. Leo, come over here. I want to introduce you to this brilliant student, Professor Albright called out, walking over excitedly. I seized the opportunity to escape and followed him to meet the student. She was a young woman with deep, intelligent eyes and features that held a maturity beyond her years. It's you, I said, surprised. Leo, she called out, her face breaking into a wide, excited grin. The professors looked at me, puzzled. Leo, you know Chloe? I smiled at her. We actually met when we were teenagers. My parents thought the math curriculum in Canada was too slow, so they sent me to a tutoring class back here during the holidays. We met there, and then we saw each other again at the International Mathematical Olympiad a few years later. After that, I got busy with my PhD and various projects, and we had lost touch. Chloe was far more excited than I was. She came up and gave me a big, enthusiastic hug. It's so great to see you again. I was pretty pleased myself. The professors weren't exaggerating. Chloe was a true math genius. We fell into an easy conversation, laughing and chatting about our shared passion. Meanwhile, Sarah stood off to the side, looking upset, but no one paid her any attention. After the drama with Mark was exposed online, her reputation had taken a nosedive. Even the professors who were once proud of her as a successful alumna now seemed to want nothing to do with her. She looked like she wanted to join our conversation, but we were deep in a discussion about abstract mathematics, and she had nothing to contribute. Before long, Mark showed up to find her, and she walked away with a stony expression. When the event was over, Chloe wasn't ready to say goodbye. She got my number and my Instagram, asking repeatedly, "Leo, you're not going to lose touch with me again, right?" I shook my head. "I'm working at the university now. I've signed a contract, so I'm not leaving for at least 5 years." She got so excited. She looked like she wanted to hug me again. I took a half step back, a bit overwhelmed by her enthusiasm. She noticed and gave me an apologetic smile. "See you tomorrow, then." I later found out that Chloe had applied for a teaching position at the university. She became my colleague. She even rented the apartment directly across the hall from mine, becoming my neighbor. I'm not a great cook, and she happily took on the task of making meals for me every day. We became practically inseparable, our lives intertwined both at work and at home. I wasn't clueless. I understood what her feelings were. But I had just gotten out of a painful relationship and wasn't ready to jump into another one so soon. Luckily, Chloe didn't push. She was content to just be with me, discussing math problems and enjoying our shared life. I thought this new life was pretty awesome, but Sarah just wouldn't go away. Her company lost the bid for the dam project, a blow that apparently hit her hard. I heard from colleagues that she had been drinking heavily for weeks and had finally broken up with Mark for good. I'm a no-nonsense kind of person. Once we were divorced, her business was her concern, not mine. I just focused on my research. But beneath the calm surface, trouble was brewing. It happened as I was leaving the elevator in our apartment building one evening. Suddenly, a woman in a gray jacket lunged at me with a long knife. I instinctively threw myself backward, scrambling for space in the tight confines of the elevator car. "It's all your fault. You took my spot." I recognized her then. She was another PhD candidate who had been hired at the same time as me. She had studied at MIT and had also worked on the math modeling team. But the school leaders had ultimately decided her work lacked the imaginative spark needed for high-level modeling. "Idiot! Just die already!" she shrieked, lunging at me again. This time the knife sliced my arm, and blood began to pour out. I shouted for help, but the hallway was empty. Just as her third swing came aimed at my head, another woman jumped between us, pushing the attacker aside. "Leo, run!" she yelled. It was Sarah. I stood there, stunned. The attacker, her eyes wild, started wrestling with Sarah. Just then, I saw the cleaning lady appear at the end of the hall. I rushed over, grabbed her mop, and swung it with all my might, hitting the attacker hard. The woman turned, her eyes blazing with a red-hot fury, as if she wanted to devour me. Sarah clung to her tightly, preventing her from getting to me. Then came a sickening, wet sound as the knife sank into Sarah's abdomen. In an instant, blood dripped from the corner of Sarah's mouth, but she still held on, her eyes locked on me. She actually smiled. I froze in horror, momentarily forgetting my own danger. Thankfully, campus security arrived just then, tackling the attacker and halting her madness. While we waited for the ambulance, I pressed my hands against Sarah's wound, trying to staunch the bleeding. "Sarah, don't you die," I pleaded. She weakly gripped my hand, her eyes never leaving mine. "Leo, can you forgive me?" she whispered. I kept my face a hard mask. "You have to stay alive for me to even consider forgiving you." Sarah was rushed into emergency surgery. The other PhD student was taken away by the police. Chloe arrived while I was standing outside the operating room, my shirt covered in blood. "Your arm," she pointed out, her voice trembling. I glanced down at my bandaged forearm. "It's fine. It's been cleaned and stitched." Her eyes were full of concern, her gaze shifting between me and the illuminated operating sign. After an exhausting 5 hours, the doctor finally came out. "The patient's will to live is strong," he said, As long as she makes it through the next 24 hours, she should be okay." Chloe and I both breathed a sigh of relief. We arranged for a private caregiver and were about to leave when Mark arrived. He rushed up to me, his hand raised to slap me, but Chloe grabbed his wrist, stopping him. "Haven't you hurt her enough?" he shouted, furious. "She almost died for you, and you're just going to walk away? It doesn't work that way." I looked at the raging man coldly and signaled for Chloe to leave with me. She let go of his wrist and followed me out. On the way back to our apartments, she seemed to want to say something, but held back. "You want to ask if I'll go back to her, because she saved my life," I guessed. Chloe nodded, her expression warm and understanding. I shook my head firmly. "No. I don't believe in repaying a life-saving debt by sacrificing your own happiness. There are many ways to show gratitude. I won't choose one that makes me miserable." When we got home, Chloe helped me wash up, since my injured arm was mostly useless. Her face was red the whole time, a detail I found surprisingly cute. Those 24 hours were tense. When we got the call that Sarah was awake and stable, Chloe and I went to the hospital to see her. Seeing the two of us walk in together, Sarah's face went even paler than before. I walked over to her bed and looked down at her. "Sarah, you need to get better quickly so you can get back to managing your company." She thought I was showing concern, and her eyes brightened. I continued, my voice even, "And don't even think about cashing in on this favor. I'll just look down on you if you do. You saved me this time, so consider it making up for all the pain you caused in the past. We're even now." I had to shut down any hope she might have. Hating someone takes energy, and I didn't want to waste any more on a person who wasn't worth it. "The moment you walk back into your office, I'll forgive you." Sarah looked glum, listening powerlessly, not saying a word. After I had made my point clear, Chloe and I left together. Half a month later, Sarah was discharged, and I went to pick her up. She was still living in the apartment we had set up for our marriage. Nothing had changed. The action figures I'd bought were still in their spots on the shelf. The watch was still on the coffee table. Seeing where my gaze fell, she quickly explained, "The one I gave to Mark was a knockoff. It's not the same as this one." I smiled at her calmly. "Let's not bring up the past." She swallowed her words, looking pale as she sat on the couch, still decorated with the cushions I had picked out. I had arranged for a housekeeper to help her while she recovered. "You're not completely healed yet. Take it easy and rest." Once the housekeeper arrived, I got ready to leave. "Leo," she called out as I reached the door. "You know, right?" I turned to look at her. "I know," I said. "I know that PhD student was always arrogant and felt slighted since she got here. Mark found out, and under his provocation she blamed everything on me. He manipulated her and drugged her, trying to get her to kill me." Sarah nodded, her face expressionless. "Yes, I didn't expect Mark to be so vicious. I'm sorry." After a moment of silence, she murmured painfully, "If I hadn't kept him hanging on, he wouldn't have hated you so much. You were in danger because of me." Saying this, she suddenly kneeled on the floor. "I'm so sorry, Leo." I glanced out the window. Without my noticing, it had started to rain. Through the glass, I could see Chloe standing by my car, holding an umbrella, waiting for me. "Chloe's waiting for me, Sarah," I said. "I have to go." I didn't look back as I walked confidently out into the rain. I hadn't been home long when Mike called. "Tina didn't follow the doctor's orders. She went straight to the office from the hospital." I chuckled. "She's an adult. She can be responsible for her own actions." Mike didn't say more and hung up. Linda handed me a cup of hot ginger tea. "Drink this so you don't catch a cold." After I finished, I pulled out an invitation to a workshop on the Hodge conjecture and waved it at Chloe. "Want to go?" She laughed. I got an invitation too. Of course, let's go together. While Sarah was busy fighting for her company, Chloe and I were immersing ourselves in the beautiful world of mathematics. 2 years later, my contract with the university ended. Chloe looked at me anxiously. Would you stay? For me? I nodded. I would. Our love story wasn't some grand, epic romance. It was calm and steady, built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared passion. She was truly perfect for me. The dark clouds from my past had finally cleared. No one could ever hurt me by pointing out my flaws again. Sarah's epilogue. The first time I saw Leo, he seemed like someone completely untouched by the cynicism of the world. He had such clear eyes, a pure and unguarded gaze. Who wouldn't want to fall in love with a man like that? I pursued him passionately, and I could tell it was his first real relationship. His joy was so open, written all over his face. When he wanted to talk about marriage, I was thrilled. But after we got the certificate, I let my guard down. I made a terrible choice at our wedding, assuming that someone with a heart as soft as his would just silently wait for me to come home. When I returned, his attitude had changed, but I didn't think much of it. I foolishly believed he would always stay put. When he mentioned divorce, I thought he was just being dramatic. So when I got Mark's call, I left Leo to handle the mess of the car accident alone. Mark hadn't been lying. He really had slipped in the shower. When I got to his place, his leg was badly bruised, and he couldn't move. I helped him to bed, and he took the opportunity to hold me, asking if I still loved him. I scoffed. When you broke up with me all those years ago, that's when the love ended. I came from a humble background. My father sold vegetables, and my mother was a homemaker. Everything I had, I achieved through my own grit. In the early days of starting my business, Mark couldn't handle the struggle of living in a basement, of eating steamed buns and pickles every day. He left me after less than 3 months. When I heard he'd been dumped by the rich girlfriend he left me for, my vanity got the best of me. I wanted to prove I was doing well, not just in business, but with a new man who loved me. Arrogantly, I brought Mark along on a business trip. He got me drunk, and we ended up in bed. I was terrified of Leo finding out. Then I got the call that Leo was in the hospital, and I learned what he'd gone through after I abandoned him. When I visited him, he was so cold. I brought Mark to apologize, but it only made things worse. I could feel Leo slipping away. After the divorce, Professor Albright told me the truth about Leo's brilliance and his family, and it hit me how shallow and arrogant I had been. He had a hearing impairment, but he never once felt inferior. He lived a bright, passionate life, and I had tried to use his disability against him, to weaken his confidence so he wouldn't leave me. It turns out I was the fool all along. I gave Mark some money and told him to leave me alone, but he wouldn't let go. He blamed Leo for my refusal to take him back and secretly incited that mentally unstable student to attack him. I'm glad I was there, that I could save him. He told me that the moment I walked back into my company, he would forgive me. The day I was discharged from the hospital, I went straight to my office. After he left my apartment that day, I kept wondering, Leo, have you forgiven me? When Mark was sentenced, I went to see him one last time in prison. I told him Leo and Chloe were together, that they were a perfect match. Mark paused, then burst into mad laughter. Great! That's just great! If I can't be happy, neither should you be. I looked at him with cold detachment. You're insane. Spend the rest of your life thinking about what you've done. He was furious, hurling insults at me as the guards led him away. Later, I heard that Leo and Chloe had a daughter. People said she looked just like Chloe. I imagine she's probably a straight-A student, a genius just like her parents.